Hey everyone, I'm Rin from Rindar Gaming, and today we're going to go over 5 things to help you tank Siege of Boralus. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that sub button for more Mythic Plus tip videos. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the pull path. This is a fairly linear dungeon, but you can still manipulate the trash to make a clean pull percentage. And if you know how to use the spotters, you can make this much easier. We're going to talk about the spotters a little bit later. So go into Method Dungeon Tools and map out the trash, making sure to include large pulls after the first spotter. That area where you're running towards the ship that you've got to cross, there's 2 large ad packs to the left that you're going to want to pull. They're worth very, very high percentage for how easy these particular ads are to deal with. One thing to keep in mind, make sure you damage the ads before you get too close to them. Using things like a Hunter's Misdirect to you and having them multi-shot will be very, very helpful. If you get into melee range with these ads before actually damaging them, one of the ads will actually one-shot the other and you will not obtain that percentage. The difference here is like 3 to 4% dungeon percentage at the end of the run, so you definitely want to make sure you get damage in on these. And like I said, there are mobs immediately to the left from the first spotter when you're running towards that ship. You want to grab up all of those, and then immediately following on the other side, you're going to want to grab that champion in that small pack there and then run off to the left and grab all those small ads as well. Again, same thing, make sure you hit them before you get too close. Grab them up, kill them off. Pretty easy day. One other thing I want to talk about here while you're pulling this dungeon, line of sight is incredibly important here. You want to make sure that you line of sight to move ads back from either dangerous pats, as well as use line of sight to gather your ads up into death balls to try and increase damage across the group. A good example would be the Buccaneers and Demolishers, as well as the other trash around the third boss. Line of sight will make these much easier to stack and kill, so make sure you're utilizing those little hidey holes. Okay, tip number 2, let's talk spotters. So these mobs are not terribly dangerous. They place a debuff on a player, making them periodically spawn a few circles on the ground. If a player gets caught in these, they will take a significant amount of damage. Okay, so that's easy enough. But why are they special? Because those circles they drop on the ground will damage most of the ads in the instance as well. It won't damage the spotters themselves, but most of the trash in this instance can be gathered up, and you can drop those spotter circles on top of those ads to do some really crazy damage. Those small ads that we talked about when we were talking about the pull path for the instance, if you gather all those up and drop 3 spotter circles on them, they're pretty much going down without the rest of the group having to really do much of anything. So with those spotter circles, it is one more mechanic to have to regularly work with, and once you get comfortable with it, it's really not too bad, and the upsides are huge. This is a very good skill play that you're going to want to practice with some friends. Get comfortable with kiting those spotters around, gathering those mobs up, getting them into one little spot, and then dropping 3 or 4 circles on them to watch them just explode. It's a lot of fun. Alright, so for tip number 3, we're going to talk about a couple of dangerous ads in this instance, the Buccaneers and the Demolishers. Okay, the Buccaneers and Demolishers are some of the more dangerous mobs in here, and a lot of that's because you deal with them in tandem. The Buccaneers will drop bananas on the group that will stun you, okay? So they're going to literally throw bananas at you, and if you walk on those bananas, you get hit by them, you get stunned for a few seconds. Not a big deal, that's not going to kill you, but the Demolishers are going to be doing frontal smashes that need to be pointed away from the team, and once he kind of commits to that frontal smash, you as the tank should be sidestepping it so you don't take that damage. If you're stunned during that as well, you're taking it to the face, and it's not going to be a lot of fun. The other thing is those Demolishers are going to cast an AoE Fear. It's going to be like a big purple circle around the ad. You're going to want to run out of that circle when he begins to cast it. Again, if you're stunned, you can't run, so, GG, you're getting feared now forever, basically. And that is when things get really terrible, because it's a pretty tight area where those guys tend to hang out, and you have a lot of chances to kind of pull some extra trash, grab mobs you don't want, don't need. And that late in the dungeon, your ability to manipulate the trash percentage is very minimal. So you need to make sure that you're watching. I love saying this. You need to make sure you're watching out for flying bananas. All right, don't take the banana to the face, and that'll make the Demolishers much easier to handle. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about is the firing lines. You're going to see a couple of these throughout the instance. And what these are is there's a bunch of entrenched mobs that are kind of set up and they're shooting at you. And it turns it almost into like just a damage gauntlet, right? On Grievous weeks, this can be very, very dangerous because you're going to take a high amount of damage and you're going to have to clear some distance pretty quickly, which is going to create some separation between you and the healer. But what you're going to want to do is that first spotter pack is actually the first firing line as well. Literally just mount up and run headlong into them and try and get an AoE attack off. That's going to stop that fire damage, allow your team to progress with you quickly and safely. And you're going to need to probably pop something there or just be mindful that that extra damage is coming in. The second one is going to be after the second boss. As soon as it drops, you're going to want to mount up. You're going to run up the hill like you're making your way over to where those Buccaneers and Demolishers are at. If you run all the way up to the edge of the area there, where that firing line is at, they will scatter. You just kind of scare them away. And once that happens, you're fine. On teaming weeks, there's going to be a couple of champions on horses there, which can make it really difficult. Not difficult, right? It's not hard to just run up to a wall, but it is dangerous. We'll say that. But you're going to want to grab those guys, move up there, push that firing line off, and then come back and continue the encounter. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you can line of sight that stuff. So you're going to see things like pillars or wagons or other obstacles along the path. Your team or you can hide behind those if the damage gets too serious, and you'll be shielded from that fire. So keep that in mind if you need a safe place for a second. Okay. And for tip number 5, we're going to go through the boss mechanics like we've been doing in a lot of these videos recently. Very first boss, Sergeant Bainbridge. So for Bainbridge, he's going to focus on a DPS or healer and chase them. If he catches them, it's a very, very bad way. You're going to be holding threat on 2 adds at the start of the fight. These adds need to be killed at first and can then be CC'd to stop the adds from spawning for the rest of the encounter from there. If the CCs are not available, range need to swap and as soon as possible and kill those adds off with you. Okay, beware, there's 2 add types. One of them's a hunter. I don't know, they sit there with a gun and they shoot people, right? The other one's going to do a big frontal smash. You're going to want to keep an eye out for that and sidestep that. It does damage, it does stun, it's not a lot of fun. But if you can't see the ads, kill the ads, and then the rest of your team needs to kite that boss around, making sure to run him through bombs to stun him out and break that channel. And basically just keep distance. That's really all you can do. Okay, second boss is Dredd Captain Lockwood. So this boss is a 2-phase encounter, one with a boss and one with a series of adds. Stay in melee range to avoid gut shot, and use roots or snares to keep the boss from using evasive. When she clears the deck and flees to the ship, 3 adds will spawn. The 2 on either side of the cannoneer can be CC'd on the ship. That will stop those adds from spawning for the rest of the encounter. Again, if those CCs aren't available, it's not a big deal. The adds don't do a whole ton of damage. Just pick them up with the cannoneer, kill them off quickly. Once the cannoneer dies, pick up that cannon, face towards the ship, hit the extra action button. It'll force the boss back. Rinse, repeat, win from there, okay? But the big thing is, if you get the ability to use something like a Hunter's Frost Trap that can be laid out there beforehand, you'll get familiar with how those adds kind of pat if you watch the ship through one of the fights. And you can lay that out there, the ad will come up, get frozen, and nothing else will spawn for that side. It's really, really great for trying to minimize the extra adds in that encounter. Okay, third boss. Hadal Dark Fathom. Okay, so this boss is an exercise in area of denial and placement. Always face them towards the outside of the room so the pulls from Crashing Tide won't hit your team and will be minimized as far as how much room they're taking up, right? Now, you don't want to be standing right on the walls because Tidal Surge is going to spawn on those walls. That's the big wave that moves across the entire encounter. And if one of those spawns on you, it's more than likely going to kill you, okay? So you want to face them away, but be far enough in that, you're not going to get gibbed by Tidal Surge, okay? Easy enough. So here's the really, really tricky bit. As soon as Tidal Surge is done, right, that's the bit where you need to run and hide behind the little statue in the middle. You want to line of sight those waves. As soon as that is over, he is going to cast a Crashing Tide. So what you want to do is position yourself and the boss in such a way that that crashing tide isn't going to move directly across your party. Now, usually what this will mean is like your entire party will be kind of stacked up against the statue while you might be all the way back. And that way it creates a slightly different angle and gives your team a chance to get out of it. It can be kind of complicated, and it can be, you know, kind of a pain in the butt to get used to. But once you do, you can minimize a lot of group damage, and you can also keep the area a lot cleaner. And it's definitely something to work towards, is really watching that crashing tide placement and making sure that you're not getting any excess damage going out. Okay, and the last boss is Vic Doff. I don't even know how to say that. I'm not even going to try. This boss is the reason most players avoid this instance. It is mechanically heavy and requires some decent coordination. So the boss itself is going to hang out in the water in the middle of the encounter area. You'll have to kill 2 different types of tentacles to progress the fight. The Demolisher tentacles will melee the tank and cast a smash from time to time in a frontal cone. The smash can be baited by the tanks, and these ads should be faced away from the rest of your group. Do note, these smashes can actually be stunned as well. So if you have the ability to stun them and you want to just kind of stand there, or if you think it's going to hit somebody as well, make sure to pop that stun there just to minimize that extra damage. Okay, the other ad is the gripping tentacle. Now these ads are just sitting there holding on to some repair dude who's going to help you try and fix these cannons, okay? The idea here is you have to kill the gripping tentacle to release the repair dude to fix the cannon so you can shoot the boss. When that happens, that platform is over. There are 3 platforms throughout the entire encounter, right? So you need to kill the demolishers off to where you never have more than 1 of them up, because they will continue to respawn throughout the fight. But as well, you need to kill that gripping tentacle. So you want to kind of split your damage to where the demolishers are always dying before the next one's going down, but the gripping is dying as fast as humanly possible. Other major mechanics to be watching out for is called the Deep. This is going to shoot a bunch of pools across a section of whatever platform you're on. If somebody gets caught in it, it will do significant damage. You can really get into that one-shot territory fairly quickly on higher keys, so you're going to want to make sure that players are watching out for that. The other, and kind of one of the big one, requires a lot of coordination, is Putrid Waters. Now what this is going to do is going to put a 30-second debuff on a player that deals pretty heavy ticking frost damage on them, right? So your healer needs to dispel those. Here's the gimmick. If somebody is next to you when you get dispelled, they get launched, usually into the water where the boss is at, and he thinks you're delicious. So that player's usually dead if that happens. So what needs to happen is, if you get that debuff, you need to split off by yourself to where you've got about 10 yards around you in all directions, and then tell the healer, okay, you know, dispel me now. This can be kind of difficult without voice comms, and is usually the quickest way to kill somebody off in your party if it's not being done well. It's a lot to ask of your healer for them to, okay, tank needs a dispel. Where's the tank at? Oh, tank's over there. Okay, well, Jimmy's standing on top of the tank. Jimmy, move off the tank, please. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Jimmy, move off the tank. Jimmy! Anyway, so try and communicate with your healers and your parties to make sure that you're separating out as much as possible. Constant communication is going to make that mechanic much easier to deal with. Also, there are going to be more of these debuffs going out than a healer tends to have dispels. So using minor magic cooldowns to try and mitigate some of that damage coming in when you get that can be very helpful, because then it'll allow the healer to dispel whatever DPS is standing there just stabbing as hard as he possibly can, and you can actually mitigate some of that damage and try and, you know, save your healers, because it is kind of a long fight and there's going to be a lot of damage going out. All right, but thanks for listening, everyone. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, post them in the comment section below. Ask me on Twitter or on my live stream. Links will all be in the description below. And if you're new to the channel, guys, make sure to hit that sub button. It does help out a lot. But until next time, later, y'all.